In this video, we are going to look at the solving square roots. Make sure you're looking at form A, because that's the one I'm using right now. And we're just going to go through and solve. And the method I'm going to use is taking square roots. Some of you solved using completing the square, which was way more difficult than what you needed to do. All right, so here we go. I'm going to try and get the x by itself. I'm going to start, or the x squared by itself. So I'm going to start by adding 6 to both sides. And then some of you took the square root at this point. You can't take the square root at this point because of that 7. You have to divide by 7 first. Now I can take the square root. So you've got to get the x squared by itself, and then you can take the square root of both sides. So what we end up with is plus or minus, because I took the square root. And we haven't talked about the fraction yet, so I let you leave it just like that. I want the 7 under the square root, though. And we didn't really do one like that, so I kind of took a various different answers there just because when I finished, I meant for it to be nice, pretty, and when it finished, it wasn't. So I will just leave it right there, even though we really should simplify it further. All right, let's look at number 2. I'm going to add 6 to both sides once again. And divide by 4. Some of you again took the square root right there. Technically, you could take the square root right there because 4 is a perfect square, but you didn't take the square root of 4. You've got to get that x squared by itself and then take your square root. Right there where you take the square root, that's where the plus or minus shows up. And then this one I did expect you to break it down. So 20 is 2 times 10, which is 2 times 5. So that's 4 times 5. When you square root, that's 2 square roots of 5. All right, moving on to number 3. So some of you on number 3 wrote out 6x plus 2 times 6x plus 2, FOILed it, combined your like terms, used a different method. Way too much work. Some of you did this. Don't write this because it's wrong. Some of you did 6 squared plus 2 squared, and then you combined your like. That's a no-no. That's like no, absolutely not. And the reason it's no is because 6x plus 2 squared means 6x plus 2 times 6x plus 2. That addition sign does not permit you to distribute the squared into it. But the easiest way to do it is to get that squared by itself. And then square root both sides. So what we get here is 6, there's no squared on that, I'm sorry. There's no squared right there. 6x plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 24. I'm going to simplify that square root of 24. I'm going to do it a different way. So 24 would be 4 times 6. 6 is 2 times 3, so it's prime. So that's going to be 2 square roots of 6. Now, I do need to finish solving for x. So I haven't solved for x yet. Making myself some room here. Solving for x, I need to subtract 2. They're not like terms. Put the rational part first. And then divide by 6. So I took this answer, -2 plus or minus 2 square roots of 6 over 6. Or, since everything's divisible by 2, you can divide everything by 2 and write that one. I took either answer, the simplified or the not, and gave you full credit. All right, that's number 3. I'm going to move this over a little bit to make myself some room. And we're going to do number 4. So here we go for number 4. It's already set up for me to take the square root. So I'm going to square root both sides. 2x minus 1 on this side. The square and the square root undo each other. On this side, that's a square root of a negative 9. So I'm going to write it. But remember, this is where the plus or minus comes in. And then the square root of 9 is 3. Square root of a negative 1 is I. So the plus and minus is with the 3i. Remember, y'all were putting the plus and minus on the wrong side. Adding 1 to both sides. Sorry, I did that wrong. I want the real part to come first. 1 plus or minus 3i, and then divided by 2. Some of you separated this out. 1 over 2 plus or minus 3 over 2i. That's fine. Or you can leave it as one big fraction. I'll take it either way. So I took it that way, or I took it this way. Either one of those. Okay, so that's Form A. If Form A was your original one and you had a lot of trouble with it, go ahead and use the blank copy to do Form B, and then watch the video to check yourself for Form B.